Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cocktails Rocktails with me, your most notorious groupie, Alice Rouse, author of this little book right here, where you can get these other books as well, all my funny merchandise, all my social media. Go hit that link tree up, you guys. Come find me, come see me, come buy me. Well, not me, exactly. Okay, that sounded really bad concerning the subject I'm going to be doing today, but some of you know when you see this book, the paperback version, what we're doing today. But as always, I like to start out every day being so thankful of the family here, of everybody, whether we're having conversations, whether you're just lurking, whether you're subscribed or not, just visiting, just discovering. I'm so thankful for everybody here. I am so truly, truly thankful for just the community, the family, everything here, for Tina, for Desiree, for everybody, Jen, for Kristen, just Christina. I just even can't name everybody. Linda, I mean, Miss Jackson, everybody's so awesome. Amazing family here. I'm so happy. My Metalla ladies, Jen, everybody, you guys are so amazing. People that I don't even know exist, that I just see your faces kind of float by in my recaps of who's watching. I'm thankful for every single one of you guys, so truly, because you have helped me build this family. You are so much a part of me moving forward, getting interviews, more sharing, more people joining. So thank you so much to everybody here for being just the legs I stand on. You are amazing. Thank you so much. I love you all. And because I love you all, we have some new people joining us, and some of them are very much into a certain aspect of my life, part of that musical community, family, fans, stuff like that, which is the Who community. A lot of people have been seeing me mostly anymore as the Metallica chick, which great. That was one of the biggest bands I hung around. They were very, very dear to my heart for many years. But, what really kind of catapulted me into the rock and roll history and Vegas history and kind of this tabloid, scandalously infamous world, because that's all I am, was of course the night with John Entwistle. So for some of you just joining me, I am the woman that was with John Entwistle when he died. So today, because like I said, some of you know when you see the paperback, we're going to have a reading. So we're going to have a reading about that kind of morning after. Chapter 19 of my book, 60 pages long, because it is so... Because 2002 was a crazy year. It wasn't just John. Glenn Tipton was there, who was good friends with John, who shared the same management as John. Rock and roll is a tiny, incestuous little world. We are all related somehow, some way. And because it was a dark story, it's kind of a dark time, but I don't regret being there. So we're going to have a little bit of our locals, Talisman Brewery, the Iron Age Oatmeal Stout. These guys this is the first time I'm trying this one, but these guys have done some really great stouts before, some really great IPAs. Just really, they don't do a ton of different brews, but they do the brews they do very well. They're very concentrated on the quality. So excited to try this. All right, everybody, grab your irons, kick up your feet, and let's have a little cocktails and historic rocktail. Oh, you can't hear it pouring. It's kind of a good sign, because stouts are a little thicker. They're not going to have that same kind of guzzly sound that a lot of lighter, crispier beers do. So, all right, everybody, let's kick up your feet and have a little cocktails and rocktails. Cheers, big ears. Very good. Okay, I like how it's a little more bitter, but a little sweet bitter, with the oatmeal kind of mellowing it out, kind of giving it a little more body to it, but really well done as usual. Like I say, Talisman are locals from north of Salt Lake and Ogden. Well done as usual. You guys always do a good brew. When I used to work for the DABC, I was always so happy to have you guys on my shelves. So awesome. Thank you guys with Talisman. Okay, so we're gonna get to a little reading, guys, because like I said, we have some new people joining us that are Who people that are kind of, and we all know how lost this story, which is very important to John's story. is. How people try and shove this to the back of history books like I don't exist because of how they want to perceive me, how they want to see me. You know, they think, well, we'll just shove the scandalous dirty bitch under the rug. We'll just, the hoe, so to speak. And that's not what I was. And so the night or the morning after of everything that happened really does get lost to history, and it shouldn't, because it is important, because it is not just his story, it's my story. And I don't want my story told by other people as it has been so many times. So for those of us just joining, I'm going to read chapter 19. Like I said, chapter 19, 60 fucking pages alone, because that's how much shit was going on in 2002. And it was just Glenn and John. January, June, the aftermath of June, August with Glenn again when I was mistaken for his daughter. Fuck you, Glenn. That was hilarious. Okay, so we're going to start where, I've shown this picture a lot where we're sitting at the table. I'm in the background. The guy who got John his Coke is sitting right up here with the screw-on hat. So I was out getting a drink. You can see the back of my hair in the background of my best friend. When she saw that picture, she's like, "That's you!" Because it was in the tabloids. This girl had sold this picture because there was rumor going around that they wanted to talk to the stripper that saw him last. Well, she thought she was it. No, darling, you weren't. Go figure. Okay, so this is kind of at the beginning of the night, well, kind of in the middle of the night, where we had been at this table already. We were ready to go upstairs and enjoy some privacy. And on the way to the elevators, because this picture has been, that this stripper from the Olympic Garden, I know who she is. She touted it as the last picture ever taken, and it was not. Was not. I'd still like to see those. There was a couple guy fans that took pictures on the way to the elevators. Never seen them. These guys, whoever you are, you know who you are. You took the last pictures of John. All right. So, okay, let me move my drinks because I always knock you guys know I'm always knocking stuff over. Okay. So this is after we were drinking, we were ready to go upstairs. Actually, hold on. I think I kind of want to start. Hold on. Okay, we'll just go ahead and start here and kind of go into the morning after, because this is long, not gonna lie. All right, so the four of us made our way to the elevators. Cy Langston, John's longtime personal assistant, business manager, friend, and brother, Bill Everly, John's art dealer, and I sauntered with John to the lifts. Halfway there, some guy stopped us for a picture with John. He gladly obliged and signed autographs before we were escorted into an elevator by a security guard. Those were actually the last pictures taken of John ever. Not the ones that were sold to the tabloids by the stripper as the last photos, but those ones. Oh. We arrived on the 6th floor of the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in the brand new tower, the second one, not the first one, and piled into John's suite, room 658. Now, a lot of people are like, yeah, we all know he was in room 658. Yeah, because of me, motherfuckers. Okay, anyway. We arrived on the 6th floor of the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino and piled into John's suite. I sat on the curvy green velvet couch in the living room. Cy wandered about, making us all comfortable. Bill sat at the table in the corner, and John took his place to my right. Actually, my left. Yep, he was to my left. I thought to myself, all is right with the world. Here we were, sitting in his suite. All had gone as planned so far. I was in my element. I was lounging in the world of my longtime lover musician, basking in complete groupiness, being adored by this legend that I put myself out there, and that he had taken the bait, hook, line, and sinker many years ago. Okay, let's do this. I was completely ignoring the knot in my stomach. I couldn't understand why I felt nerves in my gut. This wasn't the first time I had met John, nor was he the first rock legend I had been with. Not by a long shot. Just the same as I am sure I was not the first groupie John had sat next to plotting out his sexual feast. I put the fluttering feeling in my gut to the back of my head and continued on with the band game. The conversation was flowing, and it came up that I was an artist going to college at the time. Cy handed John and I a complimentary pad of paper from the hotel. He suggested that I start a picture and John finish it. We did this back and forth, each of us drawing little caricatures. Some years later, when I was standing in Cy's home, he showed me that same pad. He told me he didn't have it, but when it was produced, there were some things missing. I remember what we drew, and it wasn't all there. This puzzled me, but I get ahead of myself as usual. It was about this time that John got the nerve up to kiss me for the first time in the night. I had been in conversation with Bill about how I did my drawing and such, and when I noticed out of the corner of my eye John's gaze adoring me. I could see he'd stopped in the middle of lighting a cigarette, his lighter in one hand and the smoke in the other. As I finished my conversation with Bill, John dropped everything and gently grabbed the back of my neck and pulled me to him. We kissed deeply and long. Oh, he was always so good and scrumptious. His mouth on mine was prickly sweet, causing tingles to go down my spine. Whew! Ladies, you know, and John's hands, I probably talk about him somewhere in here, but it wasn't the first time, but it had been several, about a year since John and I had seen each other, 99, 2000, probably about 9 months. So it had been about 9 months since John and I had previously seen each other. And you know how that first time you ladies, especially backstage, when you see that rocker for the first time again on that next tour or a few weeks later, whatever, that first kiss you guys give each other, it's just, I remember this. Yeah, that was it. When we did eventually come up for air, he said, I just had to test it out. I said, how was it? Did I pass again? I teased him with my pirate eyes, sliding my hand onto his thigh. Oh, darling, you have on flying colors. You more than passed, he approved back with a saucy smile. John had the deepest, most lovely voice. It was absolutely amazing. A while after we had been in the suite, another roadie came in for a visit. John had joked before the guy came in that his forehead was so unusually wrinkly, and it looked like his Richie Sambora-style cowboy hat screwed onto his head. I carefully observed this as John slyly poked at my thigh. Check it out. It was only after this man's visit, I believe his name was Roger, something starting with an R, that the night took a rock and roll twist. As it turns out, that is where the schmocaine came from. This was directly told to me from Cy Langston himself. Sorry to be the tattletale, but I am done being blamed for this. I have protected this secret long enough. So there it is. I lied to the cops and to the world out of respect for John and because of the loyalty I have for my beloved rock and roll family. So the book is where I actually first revealed all this, back in 2014 when it came out. So it's been sitting there for everybody to see. After the screwy hat guy left, John got up and took something from Cy. He carefully unfolded the paper packet and dumped its contents onto the top of the entertainment center. John took out his credit card and began chopping the cocaine into lines, taking a minute to look around the room and count how many people he was chopping for. Noticing that he counted me into the pile of Krell. Krell is an old slang for schmocaine. I said across the coffee table, don't chop one for me. You know I don't do that, but you guys have fun with it. I didn't get a response from John as he was into his own duties. And using his selective hearing, as we called it, John was hard of hearing. He wore hearing aids, and he could hear better than he let people on. Sometimes he had selective hearing, so if he was saying, what, can't hear you over and over, it's because he chose not to. Cy heard me saying this and leaned to John and told him, don't cut one for her. It's not her thing, he said. John turns around, no, I've known her. So I was like, just saying. The schmocaine didn't bother me. Once again, this was nothing new to my eyes. I will admit that I did it a handful of times, all before the age of 20. At that age is when I had an allergy shot overdose given to me by a nurse. This near-fatal mistake would cause me to have mitral valve prolapse, a heart condition involving valves not closing, regurgitating blood, etc. I hadn't touched the powder since then. But I was also not anybody's mother in that room, and what they wanted to do was not my say. I did feel that little twist in my stomach again. This time it was loud and clearly followed by a thought in my head. Ah, John, I thought to myself, don't do that shit. I hope it doesn't affect his shock. Yeah, I truly thought that. I was thinking more in between his legs and more in between his arms. I wish I would have said it out loud. It haunts me to this day. Would things be different? Would John still be alive if I had? Or would he still have done it? He still would have done it. Let's face it, John was his own person, stubborn sometimes, but a sweetheart. I don't know. I only know where I am today and that he did one line that I saw. That's it. We weren't having a snow party and there were no drugs done off my ass or any other part of my body. Boring and simple, I know. Sorry to burst the rock star party suite idea so many people seem to have in their heads, but that is truly how it went down. John handed a rolled up bill to Cy and then passed it on to Bill. All three did a line. I was not bothered by this, except I was not happy that it might affect John's sock later in the night. Oddly enough, that was not the part of his body that was bothered by the cocaine. And also in this book, a lot of people are crediting the Ox book for saying about John's, 100% blocked arteries and stuff like that. No, this is actually the first book in 2014 that revealed that. And what the cocaine was actually cut by, because it was cut by something that 100% actually was probably the culprit behind the heart attack. So, and that came from the homicide cops later. Yeah, sure did. Okay. Cy and Bill hung out for a little while longer, but gave up for the night because John and I ended up snogging on the couch like two horny teenagers. Yeah, we were. We were all over because he just sat down next to me after he did, his little entertainment center party. And just was like, I want to kiss you more. I was like, what's stopping you, dude? And John was very much in control. I like that. Like when his hands touched you. Oh, God, you could feel John in those hands. It was so amazing. So we were just sort of making out on the couch. We just all of a sudden went into like two horny teenagers just going at it. All right. Okay, Cy coordinated tomorrow's wake-up call and art signing outing that they had to do. That they had to be at. He left with a sweet goodnight and left John and I to our own devices, which just happened to be our lips still locked. I don't even really remember Cy leaving. Yeah, because we didn't stop. I mean, he stopped for like a quick second when John was like, all right, when Cy was like, here's your wake-up call, this and that. He's like, all right, gotcha. Turns around and we just went back to kissing in his hands. And oh, yeah. Okay. About 15 minutes into our couch session, John piped up his head and said, we don't need to sit here on the couch like two horny teenagers. Let's go into the bedroom and imagine that deep, sticky, sweet voice. Oh, it's so deep with his English accent. Cream pie on the couch, ladies. That kind of. Oh, everything about him just turned me on. Okay, his voice was rich and deep, incredibly sexy to listen to, so I followed him like he was the Pied Piper. I walked through the doorway and into his arms again for a little more lip service. God, he was an amazing kisser. I can't say this enough. I was completely lost in his mouth, and his hands, loved his hands. I excused myself to the bathroom and returned with my silver chain belt in my hands. What is that? John said. Handcuffs. I couldn't tell what the look on his face said, excitement at the thought, or not so into it. But he did have a little sparkle happening. I giggled and told him, "No, it's just my belt. Would you like it to be handcuffs?" "Oh, you're all I need to be tied up with tonight, darling." We went at it again, and somehow in the middle of our snogs he managed to undo my pants and drop them to the floor. I fumbled at his shirt buttons until he was half naked as well. John sat on the bed to remove his pants as I slid off the rest of my clothes while standing in front of him. Then I did the unthinkable. I did, ladies. I kicked my pants up from the floor into the corner by the desk, total stripper style. If you know, you know. When you kick off those panties, I would catch them with my finger, twirl them, toss them behind me. Kind of the same thing with the pants. John stopped admiring my body and stared at the white bundle. Do you want me to pick those up? Oh, that was me saying that. Okay. Do you want me to pick those up? I asked, kind of stunned that he would stop for that. Because it's just pants on the floor. Where were his? Same floor. Just randomly tossed there. I picked them up and folded them over the chair. He came up behind me and grabbed me to the bed. John went at me with full enthusiasm of a man half his age or less. I knew he was good. I mean, I've been with him before, and his kisses knocked my socks off. He was easily able to get other things off. On me. Ladies, no tap, tap, tap. Oh, because I don't know what he did with other ladies, but what he did with me and that mouth. Him and Mick Jagger they taught each other, I think, because Mick Jagger's fucking great. John, really close. Okay. We tore up the sheets for a while and finished with two very happy people melting into the bed afterwards. John and I lay there, talking about this and that. He asked me what I was doing the next few days and mentioned we should do this some more. You should come on the road. Oh, I absolutely agreed. I was already packed, ladies. Because I usually went on the road with John when we'd hang out for a few days. I'd always end up on the road. So I was already packed. I was so content and comfy at that moment in time. The night had gone as I wanted it to, so far. But in my gut, that feeling, it just crept up again. I kept thinking that I wanted to go home and sleep in my own bed. I was still lounging naked when he told me to climb into the covers, and stay the night. I put a blanket over my body and my instincts as well. Oh. Okay. Well, ignoring the thoughts of escape I was having anyway, my intuition was warning me, and I chose to ignore it. Ladies, we know, never underestimate your intuition, especially when your gut's telling you night. I mean, just it was so strong. Like, normally, I still feel guilt to this day because I did not listen to my gut feeling, and every other time in my life my gut had that feeling that was so strong and prominent, I listened to it, so. And I guess I wasn't supposed to listen to it because some paths in life you just cannot defer from. And if he was going to go that night, then I guess I was meant to be the person with him, Do I regret not listening to my subconscious mind and crawling into his bed? No, I have no regrets about being there. If it was anyone else, things would not have gone as they did. Someone else might have stolen his personal effects, left, and been on the phone selling their story before anyone knew John was gone. But not me. That never entered my mind. As we lay there, still talking and sneaking kisses in between subjects, John told me that he slept on his side. Yes, I know. He never liked to sleep on his back. He had a fear that he would choke on his own vomit like a couple of his mates had done years earlier. John Bonham and Jimi Hendrix, he had mentioned previously. John said he didn't want me to be offended if he turned his back to me when sleeping. He also snored loudly, which he apologized for many times before for keeping me awake in advance. He did. He's like, "Sorry, babe." Like, it's okay. I was so used to Every man snores. I've slept next to a lot of men, and 95, 6, 7, 8% of them snore. Yeah, you guys do. All right. This conversation has been billed in the press as his last words. Nope. They weren't. He was talking about it, and it did seem odd to me later on, almost prophetic. But he was still awake and alive after we ended that conversation. I am not sure how the press even found out about that. I don't recall telling this to the cops, but I was also in shock when questioned. The only mention I remember making of it was in the tour manager's room that next morning in front of Rex King, Bill Kerbishley, Zach Starkey, and Cy. So how this got out as his last words, I don't know. John had been mentioning during the night that his left shoulder was hurting. He had felt the same pain a few weeks earlier, but it had gone away. He thought of nothing. He thought nothing of it. Neither did I, as I crawled up behind him, leaned his back onto my stomach, and began massaging his shoulder for him. I never fathomed that the pain was a warning. I just thought it was normal pain. I have bad shoulder and get the same feeling regularly. But as I look back now, it was another clue. I ended my massage and slid back next to him, lying on my side and facing John on his side of the bed. He took out his hearing aids and set them on the side table. Also, some reports have said he took them out before sex, but no, he didn't. I am sure he wanted to hear the pleasure he was giving me because, it was so pleasurable. So yes, he went out with a very big smile on his face, as did I. Well, I'm still here, but I fell asleep with a big smile on my face. Okay. And we kept going at each other's mouths. He was just that great to kiss. In the middle of our makeout session, John stopped and pulled his face away a little. In the morning, my hair looks a little bit like the Mad Hatter. Don't let it scare you, babe. Like I hadn't already seen this. Needless to say, his hair wasn't what freaked me out the next day. Nobody's hair looks good in the morning, I laughed back. John just stopped for a second and tried to make out what I had said. His hearing aids were now on the table and not in his ears, so he could barely hear me. Okay, he blankly replied and laid on his side, pulling me in for a spoon. We tried to fall asleep quickly, but he kept wanting another goodnight kiss. We did this about 3 times before we fell into slumber. The last time, John turned me to him and amusingly said, "Good night for the 4th time." Sweet dreams, I wished him and closed my eyes, basking in his arm around my waist. That was the last thing John ever said. More poignant than I would have thought. More poignant than I would have thought at the time, but in the end, it was truly a goodbye. It was about 5 or 6 in the morning when we finally closed our eyes, I think. I really wasn't looking at the clock. That is my best guesstimate of the hours. Even the next morning has been misconstrued. I was to wake up about 11:30 a.m., give or take a few minutes. I had guessed 10 a.m. as was reported, but I never did look at the clock. I now determined the time by the hour that the front desk logged my emergency call, which was about 11:50 a.m. in the morning. Because when you're going through that, you're not really looking at the clock. That was not my big, concern is what time it was. And I wasn't looking at the clock the night before. I just remember we had blackout curtains and John had shut all the curtains because he stayed up till wee hours in the morning and was kind of more of a night owl. And so we had the blackout curtains pulled, but I remember there was just a little crack as we were going to bed, and there was just a slight sunshine starting to shine through the curtains. So figured it was about 6 or 7 in the morning when we actually fell asleep. I would guess that John passed somewhere soon after that last kiss. Maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours, I think. I was told by the homicide detectives that he had been gone for only a few hours before I awoke. However, this part really gets me. Give me a sec. Okay. However, I do recall a brief moment of semi-consciousness. I had been facing John when I went to sleep, and an hour later rolled over to my side so that my back was facing him. Sorry, I bit my tongue. His arm still around me. In a very quick second of extremely limited awareness, you know it, when you roll over in your sleep and are barely awake, then right back out, I heard what I thought to be John snoring. It was a strange sound, not the usual snoring noise. I had no thought of it being anything else, as I had heard John snoring before, and it just hit me as that. Because it did. That's the guilt I live with. Had I woken up during that time, would things be different? I don't know. Had I thought it was something else, had it not been a split second, because that's all it was. I just remember that in my half-conscious memory. It's just, yeah. I think now that I could have heard his last breath leaving him. I say this because this was not a normal sound, and it was so short that I sort of heard it. I nodded right back out. This moment lasted about 2 seconds, but seems longer when I think back to it. Who knows? But then again, my gut instinct tells me it was his last. And I live with that churning inside as well. Again, it goes to that what if question. But there is no use, because what if just did not happen. I have to believe that it was simply John's time to go, and the circumstances were predestined by a higher power none of us can control. Not that John would be upset about his rock and roll bow out. Trust me, both of us were smiling when we nodded out. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to get into a little bit of the morning after. Not all of it, because I don't think I could take it. Because I did care for John deeply. We had our own little love. It wasn't like, ooh, we're in love like kids and let's get married. It was a respectful lover love. You know, we were just two people who enjoyed each other's company for several years, for 13 years. Even though I didn't sleep with him for the first few years, still hung out with him. But maybe one day I'll tell the full story. Maybe it's going to be in my book, my second one, and she was. All right. June 27th, 2002. The room was darkened from the closed curtains. I was just blinking into the beginnings of consciousness. Snuggled into the blanket, his arm was still around me. And it was so cold in the room. John liked it freezing. So I was like cuddled up against him for the body warmth. I was in the blankets, just totally snug as a bug in a rug. Snuggled into the blanket, his arm was still around me. I took a deep breath and tried to drift back to sleep, but was rudely interrupted by a rush in my body. Damn, he thought silently, I gotta go. Ugh. When we wake up at that first and it's just like, no, you're not going back to sleep, bitch. Get to the bathroom. That. I resisted the thought as long as I could, wiggling my toes because my sister said it always helped. Slowly dragging my body out from John's grasp, I folded the covers down, swung my legs over to the side of the bed, and tried to comprehend the short walk to the bathroom. I was still naked and hoping he was watching, or would at least be awakened by my stirring and would be hungry for a little morning sex. Oh, I love morning sex, and John always was there to indulge me. So, yeah. On my way to the bathroom, I remember thinking that the room was quiet. Too quiet for a man who snored. But I thought nothing of it and didn't realize that there was no snoring. I know it has been said that John was snoring when I went into the bathroom. I never said he was. He clearly was not at that point, and I didn't hear him doing so. My intuition was trying to slap me upside the head again when I thought it was too quiet. But I was not even awake yet enough to hear my intuition. I sat on the throne, stretched my arms, and saw myself in the mirror. I look good morning after good. Because ladies, ladies and gentlemen and everybody in between, we know that morning after we've been with someone that we really love, or, that we care about, that we have a long thing, that we have fun with, that we laughed, that is great sex, that went down, that didn't need a tap, 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 that was just nice, lovely, and oh yeah, felt good. You have that morning after glow. And I saw that in the mirror. I was just sitting there like, okay, cool beans. I finished up and looked around the bathroom counter for some mouthwash. I couldn't expect more than loving with the morning breath, now could I? Nope. I mean, I would have had dick breath anyway at some point that morning had he woken up. All right. Ladies, if you know, you know. Everybody in between, if you know, you know. Okay. Where am I? Okay. I couldn't expect more than loving without the morning breath, now could I? I found what I was looking for, swished and spit and headed back out to the bedroom. I got onto the bed and crawled up from the foot of John's side, sitting on my knees next to him. Good morning, I purred into his ear. No response. I bounced a little as to shake the bed and try to gently wake him up. His face was mostly buried into the pillow. John, wakey, wakey, I said as I put my palm onto his shoulder. It was cold. Frigid almost. Yeah, it was. The feeling of his skin took me aback. I looked at his face again and shook his arm, wondering if he was just ignoring me to sleep longer. I thought that he was just cold from the air conditioning being turned to practically -0 as he had being turned to practically -0 the night before. As I looked to his face, I thought, oh God, can he breathe like that? His pillow, because like I said, his face was like in the pillow. And I could only see, like, this side of his nose was kind of in there, but I could only see this side of his eye, which was closed, but I didn't realize how it was closed. It was kind of a squishy closed. Like you're closing your eyes like that, not like a sleepy close. You know what I mean? Okay. I leaned in closer to say something. Not sure what it was, because this was the moment that my brain set off the alarm. I noticed a red rash running on the left side of his cheek, the side John had fallen asleep on. He didn't have that rash last night. What is that? I questioned myself silently. I had never seen lividity before, so it didn't cross my sleepy mind. I started to call his name louder and louder and began shaking his body a little harder. Not rough or anything. I didn't want him to be grumpy because I woke him up. Needless to say, he wouldn't get mad because John was not going to wake up. I looked at the rash closer and saw it traveled down his neck and onto his shoulder. I didn't look beyond that as the covers were on him, were over him up to his chest. So up to here, and I was looking at this side, it was this side of his body. I started kind of noticing this red rash right here, and I kind of noticed it on his neck, and I saw it on kind of his arm, which was like this under. Okay. His face was in the pillow, and John was not moving. I flew backwards off the bed as it smacked me right between the eyes. Something was wrong. I almost landed on my feet, but my legs would not let me, and I fell to the floor feeling a little lightheaded and dizzy. Are you fucking kidding me? This is not happening, I said over and over in my head. I couldn't even begin to fathom what was going on, but my gut already knew. It knew the night before. I had locked away the warning so I could bask in the company of my rock star lover. Quickly back up to my feet, I ran to John's side of the bed and grabbed his shoulder. My instincts now had to jump into the driver's seat and get me through this. I don't know how I got through it. Sorry. You just go on autopilot. Your adrenaline starts going. It's like, you hear those old ladies lifting up a car and you get, because you're just on autopilot. That's pretty much what I was. I shook him a little harder and tried to get him onto his back to administer CPR, his body stiffly resisting. I was wishing I hadn't done acid on that day of CPR training in my high school health class now, wasn't I? Huh. Because I did. My high school health class that had the CPR training with, that creepy-ass blonde mannequin and the babies. I was on acid. I was really regretting it at that moment in time. Ugh. I couldn't remember if it was 3 breaths in his mouth and 5 pumps on the chest or just 3 or what. My mind was racing. So I gave one final yank to John's body and finally got it rested on his back. I began the first futile attempt at CPR. I blew in his mouth and listened as the air was rejected by his lungs. That was a weird noise. I cannot even begin to describe it, but I will never forget it. I tried giving him the kiss of life for a few minutes before admitting I needed help. John would need more than my lung capacity to get him jump-started again, or so I thought. I picked up the phone sitting on the table next to his turquoise Boris the spider necklace he had been wearing the night before and dialed the front desk. "Good morning, Hard Rock Hotel, front desk. How may I help you?" a woman answered in a rather delightful tone. "I need 911, I said in a panic. My friend's not waking up. "Let me connect you to 911, she said calmly. "Connect me? Connect me?" I thought. "I don't have time for you to connect me." 911, what emergency? How may I help you? A voice said into the receiver. "I need an ambulance at the Hard Rock Hotel. My friend's not waking up. Room 658 in the second tower," I repeated to the new person online. I hung up the phone without waiting for a response. I wasn't sure what to do next. I was still naked and standing by John's side. Should I go for another sad attempt at CPR? No. I needed to find the rooming list. Groupies, we all know about this rooming list. Now it's on their computers. Back then it was on 2 pieces of paper or a piece of paper with everybody, their room numbers, everybody on the tour, their room numbers, the fake names that the band members are staying under. So that's what I was looking for. Shit! I had to call Cy, John's assistant that had been in the room the night before. The guys needed to be notified and in this room before the paramedics. I stood still and turned my head around the room, looking for an obvious location as to where that would be. Aha! Saw it across the room. The desk on the other side of the room. That's where it had to be. And I was right and found Cy's name on the paper. And Cy and I had already known each other for years because he was on the road with John a lot, so I rang his room and waited. God, I can't imagine what it was like for Cy when he answered this phone call. "Okay." "Hello," he answered in his polished English accent. "Cy, this is Allison. You need to get down here. John is not waking up." "We're in his room," I exclaimed into the phone. "What?" "I'm on my way," he said calmly, but I know Cy, he was not calm. But he knew he had to keep a calm head because he was always the one that had to keep the calm head, that was always taking care of everybody else first and foremost before himself. I hung up the receiver and tried one more time at John's mouth, only sort of trying to resuscitate him. I stopped, my face still close to his. I looked at his mouth. I had just been kissing that mouth, and it was working fine last night. I saw his face, eyes twisted shut. Running my thumb over his bottom lip, I kissed his cheek. I suddenly came to the realization that I was still nude and other people were for sure going to be knocking the door down any second now. I looked to the chair and grabbed my pants, but somehow couldn't find my shirt, bra, or shoes. Fuck! My shirt somehow had been tossed to the other side of the bed. Well, he wasn't mad about that, but he was about those pants. I ran over and scooped him out into my hand while trying to pull up my pants. I could hear some knocking on the door of the suite out in the living room. Running out of the bedroom, I passed the entertainment center. Holy fuck. My eyes almost popped right out of my head. Last night's party was still hanging out on the surface. Sorry, you guys. Okay. The knocking was getting more persistent. I quickly did the only thing I could do, and not in protection of myself. I had nothing to do with that schmokane I was staring at, but knew John and the others had. My groupie self jumped into protection mode, and I blew like I was the big bad wolf, scattering the powder into the air. Just in time, too. The door came open and several men came in. I am not sure who besides the paramedics. I know there were 2 security guards that worked at the hotel and knew me well. One of them looked at me as he entered the living room, stalling in his step at the side of me. It didn't help that I was still holding my shirt in my hands. I slipped it quickly on before more bodies filled the room. I stepped aside and grabbed my cell phone and tried to call my friend Danny in Florida. Her mom, who was a second mom to me, had just flown down to visit her that very day, and I hoped they were home from the airport. They were. This was the last thing anybody ever expected to hear, especially my friend, as we had both seen many rock and roll nights that out-partied this one, and everyone had survived before. The room was filling. I called my friend Oris as well. I was like, Oris, fuck. What do I do? He's like, oh shit, call me when you're done with the hotel, you know? Okay. The room was filling, so I had to hang up, but I would call them back as soon as I could. It would be another 5 hours before I could make that call. Oops. So there you go. For all you people who talk shit, who have said, you know, that one reporter, what's your name, Gabe, whatever, who was in jail for online stalking people, harassing, whatever. For all of you who said there's never been anything definitive, fuck you. This has not only been told since 2002, but since my book came out in 2014. So for those of you who are just stumbling on to here, starting podcasts about the Who and stuff, there it is. And if you read the book, the rest of this chapter, because like I said, this is just the beginning. This is just the tip of the iceberg. You will find out what that schmokade was actually cut with. And why I say that is the actual culprit. Not the 100% to 75 blockage in his arteries, which is also revealed first in this book and in interviews I did before this book, is also talked about. I mean, it's just, there's a whole thing. Like I said, the schmokane was cut with something else. Read the book, or I've talked about it in several other episodes here. So, yeah, there you guys go. For all of you just joining, here's a day that changed many lives because we lost one great one. So, there you go. And thank you to everybody for getting to the end of the video, for listening to me, for always just being here. I'm going to cut it kind of short because I need to go kind of breathe for a second, because I've never really got to mourn everything. So I still go through stages of mourning because I had to go into protection mode. I had to come into mom mode. I had to go into outside of my own self for everybody else. So I still go through mourning. Okay. So, all right, everybody. Hit the subscribe, hit my bells, and we'll see you next time on Cocktails and Rock Tales. Cheers, big ears.